Hello, my name is Francyne Harrigan. I'm in the SDG Live at the World Economic Forum. SDG Live bringing conversations from Davos through our partners, UN Foundation, United Nations, sponsored by GSMA, and with the host of Consensus. I have the pleasure to be here with Peter Sands, the Executive Director of the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria. And we're going to have a conversation about innovative financing for women and girls. But first, before we jump into that, Peter, you're newly appointed as the head of the Global Fund. I was just interested in hearing, you come from a finance background, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the journey from financing into the global public health arena.
Well, you're right. I have a little bit of a unconventional background for somebody taking on a big role in global health. I'm not a clinician, not a scientist. My career is as a banker and as an economist. I ran Standard Chartered, one of the world's largest international banks, for the best part of 9 years. When I stepped down from that, I went to Harvard, and I decided to focus quite a bit of my time on the economics and financing of global health, a topic that had always interested me. And indeed, at Standard Chartered, all our CSR stuff was focused on health issues. So I spent a couple of years at Harvard doing a whole bunch of stuff around financing global health. And when this opportunity came up, I looked at it, and it was global health, a financing mechanism, the world's largest financing mechanism in global health, the developing world. Three things I know about, I'm passionate about. In a way, it's the perfect job for me.
Fantastic. So can you tell us a little about what exactly is the Global Fund?
The Global Fund for AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria is an innovative public-private partnership, a mechanism to mobilize resources to fight these three epidemics. It was founded in 2002, and it has been extraordinarily successful. And I can say that as someone who wasn't involved, so I'm not claiming credit at all. But it's been credited, and with robust numbers, with saving over 22 million lives, which is an extraordinary thing. And if you look at the data on, say, the mortality rates and infection rates for malaria, AIDS, dramatic declines. Now, that's not all the Global Fund. The Global Fund has been working with other initiatives like PEPFAR and bilateral programs and domestic resourcing, but the Global Fund has played a huge role in achieving those massive reductions in the human impact of AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So obviously we're here in Davos. So what are you hoping to achieve this week from this forum, and what role does business play in achieving the goals of the Global Fund?
Well, coming from a business background, one of the things I can do is help engage the Global Fund and businesses in achieving our mission. And to be clear, our mission is to end the epidemics of AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. The SDG 3 goal of ending those epidemics 2030, that's what we're setting out to do. And we can't do that on our own, and we do have to get businesses involved. One specific thing I'm focused on here is the critical challenge we face now with HIV infection among young women and girls, particularly in Eastern and Southern Africa. Young women and girls are multiple times more likely to get infected than boys of the same age. In some of the most affected countries, over 80% of new infections are young women and girls. And we're talking of the order of 1,000 new infections a day. So if we really want to get rid of AIDS, and we have the tools to do so, the science has advanced so much, we have to tackle this problem. Now, at the Global Fund, we know that to deal with this issue, we need to work with a whole range of other people. That includes our partners like PEPFAR with their DREAMS program, UNICEF, WHO, UNAIDS, and so on. But we also need the private sector. This is a problem with deep root causes: gender inequality, poverty, sexual violence, abuse, really complex combination of issues we're dealing with. And we need partners who can be innovative and creative in the way they reach out to these populations and engage with them. And so one of the things I'm doing here, and I did yesterday actually, is launch our initiative we're calling HER, HIV Epidemic Response. It's a platform to give private sector partners a collaboration platform to work with us in tackling this issue. And it's also a platform to give young women and girls in the affected communities a voice in shaping the strategy.
So in terms of, we're in Davos, a lot of conversations, a lot of meetings, a lot of high profile, powerful people here. What response are you receiving in terms of this new initiative, or in terms of how receptive is the private sector to these issues and wanting to partner and wanting to explore innovative responses to these epidemics?
Well, HER, I'm glad to say, has already got on board some fabulous partners. The Standard Bank of South Africa, Coca-Cola, Viv Healthcare, Product Red, Unilever. These are great companies to be working with. And when I talked about it last night to a big room of people, there were a lot of people who came up to me afterwards talking about things they might be able to do, ways they could leverage their kind of brands, capabilities, infrastructure. And that's what we need to do. We need to create a pretty broad partnership, because if we really want to achieve our objectives on AIDS, we have to tackle this aspect of the problem.
Mm-hmm. Great. When you joined recently the organization, one of the quotes I saw from the board was that the expectation was that you would take the Global Fund to the next level. What does the next level look like for the Global Fund, but also in tackling these diseases?
Well, the Global Fund has had enormous success in terms of saving lives. I mean, 22 million lives is a huge achievement. And the work of the Global Fund, with its implementer partners in the countries, with its technical partners, the cooperation with PEPFAR and others, PMI and so on, I think has done an extraordinary job, which is one reason I was thrilled to join it. But now I think we have to kind of shift the objective. Saving millions of lives is an enormously important thing to do. But we also now want to focus on ending the epidemics. So I don't want to be in a position where we're just constantly saving lives, but the diseases are constantly reinfecting more people. So we have to move into the mode of saying, we have an SDG 3 goal of ending the epidemics of AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria by 2030. It's not unrealistic. It's a hugely stretching, ambitious goal, but we actually do have the scientific tools. And so that's the shift that we've got to make now.
So Peter, you just touched on the SDGs. Just more broadly, innovation, creativity, a lot of these things are needed if we're going to implement the Sustainable Development Goals. What do you think is needed, and what maybe you've done in the past that you feel has worked to accomplish this?
Well, I was CEO at Standard Chartered, a big bank, at the time I first learned about the SDGs, and I liked them immediately. I'm an ex-McKinsey consultant, well-defined goals backed by metrics. What's not to like? Indeed, I liked them so much that I met Richard Curtis, and he was talking about Project Everyone and this idea that there needed to be a communications program to bring the SDGs at the time of their launch to the whole world. And so I kind of took a snap decision, and we were the first to actually put some money behind Project Everyone, and which I think was a great thing, because it's all very well the people in governments and multilaterals and things having a vision around the SDGs, but actually we need the people of the world to own, understand, get excited about them.
So the SDGs, obviously a lot of business, private sector have engaged, they are supporting, but there's a large segment that maybe aren't aware of them yet or don't quite get why they should be involved. What would you say to private sector CEOs, to leaders, etc., as to why they should get involved with the Sustainable Development Goals?
Well, in a way, I think we need to communicate to private sector leaders that the SDGs are, in a way, exactly the kind of thing that business leaders use in their own businesses. Clear targets, backed by metrics, accountability about the delivery of them. But we're doing this for the world as a whole. And that's something I know many business leaders are excited about. For me personally, this has been a transition from the SDGs being these great global goals, but in a way quite distant, to being now, in my new role, these are my personal objectives. SDG 3 and the specific objective around ending the epidemics of AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, that's my job.
Super. It's been fantastic talking to you. We're coming from the World Economic Forum. If you want to follow the conversations for the rest of the week or catch up on some old ones, we're at sdglive.org, or you can follow us #SDGLive. Thanks for joining.